I used to believe that raising a child meant one day you'd have someone to lean on in old age. I thought if I gave my son David everything, my love, my patience, my sacrifices, he would always protect me. I was wrong. Because the moment David inherited $29 million, he forgot I was his mother. And within days he threw me out of the very home I helped him build. Hook, I never imagined my own son would look me in the eye and say, "You don't belong here anymore, Mom. Leave." Before I continue, let me ask you, where are you listening from? Do you live with family or on your own? Share in the comments. I love hearing your stories. And please subscribe if you want more real-life dramas that hit the heart. It started with the will. My late husband's father had been a businessman, one who never trusted me. When he passed, he left the bulk of his fortune, $29 million, to David alone. David came home that night, grinning ear to ear, champagne bottle in hand. "Mom, we're rich," he said, hugging me tight. "From now on, you'll never have to worry again. No more bills, no more struggling. I'll take care of you." Tears filled my eyes. After years of scraping by, years of making ends meet on a widow's pension, those words felt like salvation. For 2 days I let myself believe him. Then the changes began. Expensive cars rolled into the driveway. Parties filled the nights, strangers spilling drinks across my kitchen floor. David strutted through the house like a king, barking orders at caterers, decorators, even me. "Mom, don't sit there," he said once, shooing me from my own armchair. "That's where my friends hang out." I laughed it off, but a cold seed took root in my chest. On the 5th night, after the music had died down and the last guest stumbled out, David cornered me in the hallway. "Mom," he said, his tone sharp, "this place doesn't really suit you anymore. You'd be happier somewhere quieter." I frowned. "This is my home, David. I raised you here." He smirked. "It's my home now. And honestly, you're in the way. I'll pay for a nice place for you, a nursing home maybe. You'll be comfortable." The words hit me like a blow. "David," I whispered, "I'm your mother. How could you say that?" But he only shrugged, the gold watch on his wrist glinting under the light. "You'll thank me later. You don't belong here anymore." The next morning my bags were waiting by the door. Not packed with care but tossed together like garbage. He stood there, arms crossed. "Don't make a scene, Mom. The car's outside. You'll be fine." I picked up the suitcase, my heart shattering. The boy I had nursed through fevers, the teenager I had defended at school, the young man I had cheered for at graduation, he was gone. All that stood before me was a stranger wrapped in money and arrogance. But as I walked down the driveway, suitcase dragging, one thought seared into me, hotter than grief, sharper than betrayal. "You may have thrown me out, David, but you will regret it. And when you come crawling back, begging for help, I'll make sure you learn exactly what it feels like to be powerless." Because I wasn't just a discarded mother. I was a woman who had survived loss before, and I was ready for revenge. The taxi pulled away, leaving me on the curb with 2 suitcases and a heart that felt heavier than stone. The nursing home David had arranged for me stood before me. A bland, gray building with peeling paint and a flickering sign. Inside, the air smelled of bleach and loneliness. A nurse took my bags without a smile. "You're in room 12B, she said flatly. "Dinner's at 5. I shuffled down the hallway, my footsteps echoing. Old men stared blankly at the television in the lounge. Women sat in wheelchairs, their eyes glazed as if waiting for someone who would never come. This wasn't home. This was exile. That night, I lay awake in the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. David's words repeated in my head, "You don't belong here anymore." A tear slipped down my cheek, but it wasn't just grief anymore. It was anger. All my sacrifices, every meal skipped so he could have new shoes, every night I worked late to pay his tuition, they had led me here. Cast aside like trash. "No," I whispered into the dark. "He will not win. Not this time." The next morning I found a familiar face in the dining hall. "Margaret Hayes," a voice asked. I turned. Standing there was Laura Carter, my neighbor from years ago. Her husband had once worked in finance, and after he passed she had moved into the same facility. "Laura," I gasped. "I can't believe it's you." She smiled sadly. "Same here. Looks like we both ended up in this place." We sat together, sharing watery oatmeal and memories of better days. When I told her about David, her eyes flashed with outrage. "That boy always had greed in him," she muttered. "But throwing out his own mother? That's beyond cruel. I leaned in, lowering my voice. I'm not just going to sit here and rot, Laura. He thinks he's untouchable because of that money. But I know greed destroys faster than fire. I just need a way to light the spark. Laura tilted her head. I may know someone. My late husband kept in touch with a lawyer. Sharp man, knows how to handle inheritances. If anyone can help you, it's him. Hope flickered inside me. Can you reach him? I asked. She nodded. I still have his number. I'll arrange a call. That evening I stepped outside into the courtyard, clutching the phone Laura had borrowed from the nurse's desk. The line clicked and a deep voice answered. This is Robert Allen. I swallowed hard. Mr. Allen, my name is Margaret Hayes. My son inherited a fortune and then he forced me out of my home. I don't want pity. I want justice. There was silence, then a low whistle. Mrs. Hayes, you've come to the right person. But I'll be honest, you'll need patience and evidence. If you can gather proof of his misconduct, I can make sure the law pays attention. Evidence? I echoed. Yes. His spending, his threats, anything showing he's unfit to manage that inheritance. Money attracts vultures, Mrs. Hayes. If he's reckless, we'll catch it. I tighten my grip on the phone. Then I'll gather it. Whatever it takes. That night, for the first time in days, I slept with purpose. David thought he had banished me. He thought the nursing home was the end of my story. But in truth, it was only the beginning. I would rise from this place. I would gather the truth like arrows. And when the time came, I would aim them straight at the heart of the son who betrayed me. 2 days later, Laura slipped a folded piece of paper under my door at the nursing home. Inside was a phone number neatly written in blue ink. Robert Allen, attorney at law. Call him whenever you're ready, she whispered at breakfast. I nodded. I was more than ready. That afternoon, Robert arranged for me to leave the facility for medical errands. But instead of a doctor's office, the cab took me to a small cafe downtown. He was waiting in a corner booth, a tall man with graying hair and sharp eyes. Mrs. Hayes, he said, standing as I slid into the seat. I reviewed some public filings this morning. Your son's inheritance was placed in a trust. That means it's traceable, and his spending habits are already making waves. My heart pounded. What do you mean? Robert handed me a folder. Inside were printouts, bank transactions, property deeds, credit reports. I gasped. 5 luxury cars? 2 houses? A yacht? Robert nodded grimly. All in the last 4 days. He's burning through it like kindling. If we can document this pattern, and combine it with your testimony of abuse, we'll have a case. I clenched my fist. Tell me what I need to do. That evening, back in the nursing home, Laura and I huddled like schoolgirls plotting mischief. I still know the neighbor across from your old house, she said. She's nosy as a crow. I'll bet she's seen everything, deliveries, strangers, parties. Perfect, I said. The more eyes on him, the better. Within a day, Laura returned with a notebook full of observations. Trucks unloading furniture at all hours. Strangers leaving with bags. Music blaring till dawn. It was evidence of chaos, and the first crack in David's shiny new empire. But the most damning proof came when I borrowed Laura's phone and called David directly. He answered with slurred words, music pounding in the background. Mom, why are you calling? Shouldn't you be knitting or something? My jaw tightened. David, have you even looked at what you're spending? He laughed. Relax, Mom. I've got millions. I'm untouchable. Money doesn't last forever. It will for me. Now stop worrying. You're out of the picture, remember? He hung up. Laura's eyes widened as I hit record stop on the phone. That, I said, holding up the saved call, is exactly the kind of arrogance that will bury him. Over the next 2 days, Robert coached me on building the case. Keep every receipt, every witness statement, every recording, he said. Judges don't listen to feelings. They listen to facts. We'll give them facts so sharp they can't look away. I felt something stir inside me, a strength I thought had died with my husband. For years I had been just a mother, then a widow, then a discarded burden. But now I was a fighter. Meanwhile, news began to ripple through town. At the grocery store, Laura overheard whispers. Did you hear about David Hayes? Spent a fortune on some nightclub deal that collapsed. They say he's gambling too. Vegas trips, high-stakes poker. Each rumor was a stone in the wall I was building against him. Late one night, I sat in my narrow bed at the nursing home, staring at the folder Robert had given me. Photos of cars, yachts, stacks of bills. All things David thought would make him untouchable. I touched the papers, my voice low but steady. You took my home, David. You humiliated me. But every dollar you waste is another nail in your coffin. And I will be the one hammering them in. I closed the folder, slid it under my pillow, and let the anger keep me warm. Because revenge wasn't just a plan anymore. It was my purpose. 3 days had passed since I last spoke to David. Every hour Robert fed me more updates, each one worse than the last. He wired $500,000 to a so-called investment firm, Robert said over the phone. It's a scam. I've seen the names before. Another day, he bought a nightclub downtown. Didn't even check the permits. The city's already threatening to shut it down. Another. Creditors are circling. He's borrowed against his own trust. That's not just reckless, it's dangerous. Each revelation felt like both a wound and a gift. My son was spiraling, yes. But every bad decision was another thread in the net I would use to catch him. Laura slipped into my room one evening, her eyes wide with gossip. You won't believe this, she whispered. My neighbor saw a group of men outside your old house last night. Big guys, suits, fancy cars. She said David looked terrified. I stiffened. Loan sharks. Or worse. I closed my eyes, bow rising. David had always been ambitious, but now he was dancing with wolves, and he didn't even know it. The next morning Robert met me again at the cafe. He laid a stack of papers on the table. Here, he said. Documentation of every reckless move. Cars, houses, debts. It's enough to raise red flags in court. I flipped through page after page, my hands trembling. This will destroy him, I whispered. Robert leaned closer. Mrs. Hayes, you need to ask yourself, is that what you want? To destroy him completely? I met his eyes. My throat burned, but my voice was steady. He destroyed me first. He left me in that nursing home to rot. If he feels 1 ounce of what I felt, it will be justice. Robert nodded slowly. Then we'll strike when he's weakest. That night I dreamed of Robert, my late husband, standing in our garden, roses blooming around him. Stay strong, Margaret, he whispered. You survived losing me. You can survive this too. Make him understand. I woke with tears on my cheeks, clutching the folder of evidence like a shield. 2 days later, the news spread like wildfire. David's nightclub venture had collapsed. Employees hadn't been paid. City inspectors had locked the doors. I sat in the dining hall of the nursing home, listening as whispers filled the air. Can you believe it? The millionaire already failing. Pride comes before the fall, they say. I didn't join the gossip. I just stirred my soup slowly, letting the satisfaction simmer inside me. That evening David called. Mom, he said, his voice clipped. I froze. He hadn't called me since the night he threw me out. What do you want? I asked coldly. He hesitated. I need advice. I almost laughed. Advice. From the burden he had tossed aside? But I kept my voice calm. I thought you didn't need me anymore. It's just temporary, he muttered. The nightclub, it wasn't what I expected. But I'll bounce back. I don't know who to trust. I bit my lip, savoring the moment. He was cracking. David, I said softly, you should have thought about that before you betrayed your own mother. Trust isn't something you buy with money. It's something you lose forever with greed. Silence. Then he hung up. I turned to Laura, who sat across from me, eyes wide. He's on the edge, I told her. One more push and he'll come crawling. Laura smiled grimly. And you'll be waiting. I nodded, fire burning in my chest. David had cast me aside like nothing. But now the walls around him were crumbling, brick by brick. And when they fell completely, I would be there, not to catch him but to watch him hit the ground. The storm came faster than I expected. 2 nights after David's nightclub collapsed, Laura's neighbor called her in a panic. There were men outside again, she said. Not like before. This time they were shouting. One of them pounded on the door, screaming about money. Laura passed me the message at breakfast. My spoon froze halfway to my mouth. So it had begun. That afternoon I received another call, this time from David himself. His voice was tight, frantic. Mom, I need help. I closed my eyes, savoring the words I had waited to hear. What kind of help? I asked. There are people, investors I guess. They're threatening me. They say I owe them money I don't even remember borrowing. Please I don't know what to do. For a moment the mother in me wanted to run to him, to shield him the way I had when he was a boy. But then I remembered the morning he left my suitcase by the door, his voice cold as stone. You don't belong here anymore. My jaw tightened. You made your choices, David. Now you live with them. He stammered, desperate. Mom, please. I hung up. That night I met Robert at the cafe again. He slid a newspaper across the table. Front page. Millionaire heir faces lawsuits amid scandal. Beneath it, David's photo. Disheveled, cornered, no trace of the arrogant man who had thrown me out. They're closing in, Robert said. The trust fund managers are alarmed. If we present our evidence now, we can push the court to freeze his assets. That'll cut him off completely. I stared at my son's face on the page. Once that smile had been innocent. Now it was nothing but a mask cracked beyond repair. Do it, I said coldly. Freeze everything. Laura was waiting when I returned to the nursing home. She looked nervous. Margaret, if you do this, there's no turning back. He'll lose everything. I met her eyes. He already took everything from me, my dignity, my home, my trust. This isn't just revenge, Laura. It's justice. She nodded slowly. Then I'll stand with you. The next day Robert filed the petition. It was swift, brutal. Judges don't take kindly to reckless heirs squandering fortunes while leaving family in squalor. By evening, David's accounts were frozen. His cards declined. His so-called friends scattered like flies when the sugar ran out. That night he called again. His voice was raw, broken. Mom, they shut me out of my accounts. I can't access a cent. My friends won't answer. The men outside, they're going to kill me. I sat in silence, letting his panic fill the line. Finally I spoke. 5 days ago you threw me into a nursing home and told me I didn't belong. And now you want me to save you. He sobbed. I was wrong, Mom. Please. I'll do anything. Just help me. I closed my eyes, my heart torn between satisfaction and sorrow. Maybe, I whispered. But first you'll have to learn what it feels like to crawl. Then I ended the call. That night as I lay in my narrow bed, the silence was no longer heavy. For the first time since Robert died I felt in control. Not as a mother begging for scraps of love, but as a woman who had survived betrayal and found her strength again. David thought money made him untouchable. But in the end, it was his greed that had chained him. And I was the one holding the key. The storm finally broke on the 5th night. I was in the nursing home courtyard, sitting beneath the flickering lamp, when I heard hurried footsteps. For a moment I thought it was just an orderly. But then I saw him. David. His once tailored suit hung loose, wrinkled as if he had slept in it for days. His hair was unkempt, his eyes bloodshot. He stumbled toward me and before I could speak he dropped to his knees on the concrete. Mom, he choked out, his voice raw. Please. Forgive me. Help me. For a long moment I said nothing. I had imagined this scene 100 times in my head. Him kneeling, me standing above him, the balance finally shifted. But the reality was heavier than I had dreamed. You have some nerve coming here, I said at last. My voice was cold but my hands trembled in my lap. He clasped his palms together like a child begging for mercy. I lost everything. The cars, the houses, the money, it's all gone. After me, Mom. I don't have anywhere else to go. I stared at him, this broken man who had once been my little boy. The same boy who had built Lego castles on my kitchen floor, who had kissed my cheek before school. But that boy had grown into a man who threw his mother into exile for the sake of pride. I warned you, I said, my voice rising. I told you money doesn't last forever. But you wouldn't listen. You cast me aside like I was nothing. I was stupid, he whispered. Blinded. I thought money made me powerful, but it destroyed me. Please, Mom, you're all I have left. Tears pricked at my eyes. But I refused to let them fall. You wanted me gone, I hissed. You told me I didn't belong in my own home. You made me feel like a burden. And now you want me to save you. He lowered his head to the ground, forehead touching the concrete. Yes. I'll do anything. Just don't let them take me. Laura had been watching from the window. She came outside quietly, her arms folded. This is your chance, Margaret, she murmured. He's on his knees. You can decide his fate. I looked down at my son. The weight of years pressed against me, years of sacrifice, years of love, years of betrayal. For once I had the power, and he had none. Stand up, I commanded. He scrambled to his feet, trembling. Anything, Mom. Just tell me what to do. I met his eyes, steady and unflinching. You will return what's left of the inheritance to the trust. You will sign over the house to me where it belongs. And you will face the law for what you've done. He flinched. The law? Mom, if I go to court, I'll be ruined. I stepped closer, my voice sharp as a blade. You already are ruined, David. But at least this way, you can start to repay the damage you've done. He collapsed into sobs, covering his face with his hands. For the first time in my life, I did not move to comfort him. Later that night, as I sat with Laura in the quiet lounge, she asked softly, "Do you feel better?" I stared at my hands, still trembling. "I don't know if I feel better," I said honestly. "But I feel stronger. He took everything from me. And now I've taken back what matters most, my dignity." Laura squeezed my hand. "That's revenge enough." I nodded, my heart heavy but resolute. Because David's downfall was no longer just his own doing. It was the lesson I had carved into him with the sharp edge of betrayal turned back on itself. And I knew he would never forget it. The courthouse smelled of varnished wood and old papers, the same as it had when Robert and I once came to sign the deed to our home. Only this time I wasn't there to build a future. I was there to watch my son's empire collapse. David sat at the defendant's table, slumped in a cheap suit borrowed from a friend. The arrogance that had once dripped from every word was gone. His hands trembled as the judge read the charges. Reckless mismanagement of funds, fraudulent contracts, unpaid debts, elder neglect. My stomach tightened. No mother ever dreams of seeing her child like this. And yet, this was the path he had chosen when he chose greed over love. The prosecutor laid out the evidence Robert and I had gathered. Bank records, witness statements, even the recording of David's drunken phone call where he declared, "I'm untouchable." The jury listened in silence. Every word drove the nail deeper. When it was my turn, I walked to the stand. My legs shook, but I kept my voice steady. "My son inherited $29 million, I said, staring at the jurors. With that money, he could have built a life of generosity, of legacy. Instead, he used it to throw me, his own mother, into a nursing home so he could claim my house as his. He thought money made him a man. But true character is revealed in how you treat the people who raised you." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. David lowered his head into his hands. By the end of the trial, the verdict was clear. "David Hayes," the judge declared, "you are guilty of fraud and elder abuse. You are hereby sentenced to 4 years in state prison, with restitution to your mother for damages caused." The gavel struck. I closed my eyes, a tear slipping free. Not for him, at least not entirely. But for the boy he once was and the man he could have been. Outside, Robert Allen walked beside me. "You did it," he said quietly. "You stood your ground." "I didn't do it alone," I replied, glancing at Laura waiting with open arms. Robert gave a faint smile. "No one wins these battles alone. Remember that." Back at the nursing home, I packed my bags. But this time it wasn't David shoving them into the hallway. It was me walking out with my head held high. Laura had arranged for me to move into a small cottage near her daughter's house. It wasn't the mansion David once promised me, but it was mine. Safe, peaceful. I set Robert's photo on the mantel, lit a candle, and whispered, "We're home again, love." Not the same house, but a place of dignity. I kept my promise. I didn't let him take everything from us. Sometimes in the quiet evenings I think of David. I see him as a boy running barefoot through the yard. I see him as a man blinded by greed. And I see him in that courtroom, broken, begging. Do I forgive him? Not yet. Maybe never. But I've learned that forgiveness is not the same as weakness. And revenge is not the same as hate. Revenge gave me back my dignity. It taught my son that blood cannot be bought with money, and that betrayal carries a price. Now, when I walk in my garden, roses blooming in the sunlight, I feel Robert's presence beside me. I survived. I endured. And though my heart is scarred, it still beats strong. Because in the end, I proved what David never understood. A fortune can vanish in days. But a mother's strength, tested, broken, and rebuilt, lasts a lifetime. The first letter came 2 weeks after the sentencing. I almost threw it away when I saw his handwriting on the envelope. My hands shook as I slid it open, the smell of prison paper sharp and bitter. "Mom," it began, "I don't know how to say this. I never thought I'd end up here. The walls close in every night. I hear men screaming down the halls. I dream of the house, of you, of Grandpa's roses, and I wake up choking on regret." My throat tightened. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I betrayed you. I threw you away. But Mom, I'm scared. I need you. Please don't forget me." The words blurred as tears stung my eyes. Laura found me at the kitchen table, the letter trembling in my hand. "From David?" she asked softly. I nodded. "He says he's sorry. Says he's scared." She placed a gentle hand over mine. "And how do you feel?" I stared at the ink, at the desperate words of a man stripped of pride. Like two women live inside me. One who wants to tear this paper in half, and one who wants to hold my son until he stops shaking. That night I sat by Robert's photo, candlelight flickering across his kind face. "What do I do, Robert?" I whispered. "He ruined me. But he's still our boy. Do I turn my back? Or do I let him break me all over again?" The candles sputtered, and in the silence I realized something painful. Revenge had given me strength, but it hadn't erased the love buried deep in my bones. Love that no betrayal could fully kill. A week later, another letter arrived. This one was harsher. "Mom, they don't leave me alone in here. I've had fights. I'm not the same man anymore. I think about the night I pushed you out. I hear your voice telling me I'll regret it. You were right. I'd give anything to go back. Please, if you can, write me. Just once. Let me know I'm not completely forgotten." I folded the letter slowly, setting it in the drawer with the first. I did not reply. Not yet. At church that Sunday, Mrs. Carter pulled me aside. "Margaret, people talk. They say David's paying for his sins. But don't let their gossip decide your heart. You must choose revenge or release." Her words echoed all day. Revenge had tasted sweet when he knelt before me, when the judge struck his gavel. But now, with every letter, the sweetness soured into ash. That evening I walked into the garden. The roses I had planted weeks earlier bloomed fiercely, red against the twilight. I touched a petal, remembering the boy who once ran barefoot through Robert's garden, laughing, chasing fireflies. Could that boy ever come back? Or had greed buried him forever? As the stars came out, I whispered into the night, "David, I won't forget you. But I won't free you from the lesson you carved into my soul. You broke me and I rebuilt stronger. Now it's your turn to learn what it means to endure." I left the letters in the drawer, unopened to the world but burning in my heart. Because sometimes revenge isn't fire and fury. Sometimes it's silence. And silence can be the heaviest punishment of all. The third letter arrived on a rainy afternoon. The nurse at the nursing home handed it to me with a curious glance. By now she knew the handwriting well. I carried it to my room, my heart heavy. This one was different. Thicker, with shaky script covering the envelope. I opened it with trembling hands. "Mom, I don't know how much longer I can stand this. Fights break out every day. I've been hurt. The guards don't care. I dream of you at night, sitting by the garden, and I wake up with tears. Please, I need you to visit me. Just once. I don't deserve it, but if you still see me as your son, come." Blood drained from my face. That evening, Laura found me sitting by the window, the letter limp in my hands. "He wants me to visit," I whispered. She frowned. "And will you?" "I don't know." I pressed the paper to my chest. Part of me wants to look him in the eye and tell him he's still nothing but a stranger who betrayed me. But another part wants to see if there's still a trace of my boy in him. Laura sighed. "Revenge brought him low. But only you can decide whether to leave him there or reach out." The next Sunday I lit a candle at church and prayed. Not for forgiveness, not for peace, but for clarity. As the wax dripped down, I remembered the night Robert died, how David had held my hand at the funeral. He had promised me then, "I'll take care of you, Mom. Always." What had twisted that boy into the man who threw me away? And could prison twist him back? Or only break him further? 2 days later, Robert Allen called. "I had a message from the prison board," he said. "David was in a fight. Nothing fatal, but bad enough. They've put him in isolation. He listed you as his emergency contact." My chest tightened. "Emergency contact?" "Yes. Despite everything, you're still the one name he trusts." I sank into my chair, tears stinging my eyes. Even after all the betrayal, all the greed, he had written my name on that form. That night I sat in the garden again, roses blooming in the cool air. I read the letter once more under the stars. Visit me, if you still see me as your son. I whispered into the night. Robert, what do I do? He's begging me. But if I go, do I betray myself? Do I let him break me all over again? The wind rustled through the leaves, but no answer came. The next morning I wrote a note of my own. It was only a single line, but it carried the weight of every sleepless night, every tear, every scar. You are still my son. But whether I visit or not will depend on whether you prove you are still my family. I sealed it and handed it to the guard who collected outgoing mail. For the first time since David had been imprisoned, I felt a strange peace. Because revenge wasn't just about tearing him down. It was about making him see the cost of betrayal, and forcing him to earn back what he had so carelessly thrown away. As I tucked Robert's photo back on the mantel that night, I whispered, I haven't forgiven him yet. But I've left the door open. Just a crack. Enough for him to crawl through if he truly changes. The candlelight flickered, shadows dancing across the walls. For the first time I realized revenge had already done its work. David was broken, humbled, desperate. Now the choice was mine, to keep him in the shadows forever or to test if redemption was possible. The prison smelled of bleach and iron. Doors clanged shut behind me as a guard led me down the gray hallway. My heart pounded with every step as if I were walking into a storm I wasn't sure I could survive. At last we reached the visiting room. A pane of scratched glass separated us, a phone on either side. And there he was. David. His face was thinner, paler, eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. A scar cut across his cheek from some unseen fight. But when he saw me, his shoulders sagged with something I hadn't seen in years. Relief. He lifted the phone with trembling hands. Mom, he whispered, voice cracking. Slowly I lifted mine. David. For a moment we just stared at each other, the silence heavier than words. Finally he spoke. I didn't think you'd come. I almost didn't, I admitted. You gave me every reason to turn away. Tears welled in his eyes. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life wishing I could take it back. I was blind, Mom. Greedy. I thought money would make me more than I was. But it only showed me how empty I'd become. His voice broke and he pressed his forehead against the glass. I'm sorry. For the house. For the money. For throwing you away. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I couldn't live another day without telling you this. I still love you. Even if you hate me. My chest ached, torn between rage and love. I remembered the night he shoved me out, suitcase by the door. The sting of betrayal, the weight of humiliation. But I also remembered a little boy running barefoot in the yard, clutching my hand at his father's funeral, whispering, I'll take care of you, Mom. I pressed my own forehead to the glass, tears sliding down my cheeks. I can't forget what you did, I said softly. It broke me, David. But I am still your mother. That will never change. He sobbed openly, shaking with the force of it. Then there's hope? I closed my eyes. Hope is not forgiveness. It's a seed. You'll have to water it with every action from here on. Words are not enough. The guard tapped his watch. Our time was nearly over. David's eyes locked on mine, desperate. Please, Mom. Don't give up on me. If you can't forgive me yet, then let me earn it. I swallowed hard, my hand pressing to the glass as if it could reach through. You have a long road, David, I whispered. But I'll be watching. Don't waste what little chance you have left. He pressed his palm to the glass against mine. For a brief, fleeting moment, it felt almost like the touch of the boy I once knew. Then the guard pulled him away. When I stepped out of the prison, the air was cold and sharp, but my lungs felt lighter than they had in years. Laura was waiting by the car. How did it go? She asked gently. I looked up at the gray sky. He's broken. But maybe that's what it took for him to see clearly. I don't know if I can forgive him. Not yet. Maybe never. But I won't close the door completely. Laura nodded. That's enough. For now. As we drove away, I whispered to myself, revenge gave me back my dignity. But maybe redemption, if it comes, will give me back my peace. The roses would bloom again in my garden soon. And when they did, I would decide whether to cut them for him, or let the thorns remind me of the price of betrayal. Either way, the choice was mine.